Hello and welcome. Today, we'll look at an important topic in any JavaScript interview, closures. So, what is a closure? Well, with JavaScript, you can declare a function inside of another function. So, you'll have an inner function which is completely encapsulated by the outer function. And so this is called the closure. But what is really useful with closures is that the inner function has access to the outer function's scope. So it can have access to a variable declared inside of the outer function, or even variables outside of the function in the global scope. It retains this access after the outer function is finished executing. And closures are great for data encapsulation, callbacks, throttle, debounce, currying, and memoization functions, just to name a few. All right, let's make a closure. So we can go ahead and start by making a new function called counter. This will serve as the outer function. Then we can assign a new variable called current count inside of the body of the outer function and set it equal to 0. Now we're going to return a function. This will be the inner function of the closure. It will also be anonymous. Because we have access to the outer function's scope, we can go ahead and increment current counter by 1. Once that's done, we can return the current counter. Now, to create a new instance of the closure, we can declare a constant called dogCounter, and we will invoke the function. Now, every time we call dogCounter, we will be returning the result of the inner function, and you can see that each time we call dogCounter, we are incrementing the current counter by 1. Because we created a new instance of dogCounter, every time we call the inner function, we are referring to the same instance. However, you could also invoke the inner function by using this notation, where the first invocation refers to the outer function and the second refers to the inner function. If we log 2 of these, however, we'll see that they are both equaling 1 because they are not referring to the same instance, so 0 increments to 1. On to some theoretical questions. You might be asked to explain a closure in JavaScript. A closure is when you declare a function inside of another function. The inner function has access to the outer function's scope, so it can have access to a variable declared inside of the outer function or even variables outside of the function in the global scope. Closures are great for data encapsulation as well as patterns that utilize private states and functions. You might also be asked, can closures lead to memory leaks? How? Closures can inadvertently lead to memory leaks. Inner functions retain access to the outer function's variables and keep them alive. Since these elements are technically in use, they cannot be garbage collected. This may lead to unnecessary memory consumption, which over time may be costly and potentially lead to memory leaks. Lastly, how can you avoid memory leaks with closures? You can attempt to minimize the scope, avoid using global variables, and engage in active cleanup such as removing unnecessary event listeners. All right, on to some coding questions. You might be asked to return the sum of two numbers using the following syntax. So this is a huge clue that we'll want to use closures. We can go ahead and create an outer function named sum. We'll add a parameter x, which will be the first value we want to be summed. Then inside of here, we'll add an inner function, which will be returned. We'll pass another parameter y, and then inside of the function, we can add the two together. Let's hit save and log the result. What's cool too is I can go ahead and create a new instance of sum and store it in a variable called add5. And now I can invoke the inner function and pass 4 in one scenario, and then 10 in another scenario, and we'll see that we get 9, which is 5 plus 4, and then we also get 15, which is 5 plus 10. It's pretty cool stuff. That concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.